Welcome to the Edifice Complex, the property design and development podcast. Let your hosts Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean keep you up with who is innovating and doing great work, perspective on the adjacent possible, and challenges to the status quo.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex. I'm Robert Bean, your co-host, unofficial mediator, here with my colleague, official agitator, friend, and Yoda of everything to do with buildings, Mr. Adam Muggleton. Say hello, sir.
Hello there. Okay, so yes, very agitated right now about everything in life in general. So I'm sure Samson's going to calm me down.
Prior to the show, we were talking about politics, so yeah, Adam's wound up. So with us today is a gentleman who is passionate about district energy, infrastructure development, and strategy, which I love. I think there's a big story there that I don't think society is hearing yet. He's vice president and vice president of development with Corix, a company focused on the transition to clean energy that does actually have a long history rooted in North America, utility space. And at the center of his radar screen is answering one question posed by every developer and infrastructure owner, and that is, will this help my project get built and operate successfully over the long term? Great question. Welcome to the program, Samson Tam.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. I'm just thrilled to be here, and obviously been following your podcast for several years now. And so when I got the invite, I was like, wow, honored. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you,
Samson. You took an honors degree in mechanical engineering from Waterloo, and then you coupled it with an executive MBA from Oxford, and then you followed up with another MBA from UBC Saunders School of Business. That's the University of British Columbia. And you use those to journey through some really well-respected names, RUP, WSP, Introba, Creative Energy, and now Corix. Two things that always impress me about you. One is your passion for your practice, in a really sort of influential market segment that needs to just explode, and the determination to have a normal family life.
Determination is the key word there.
So where did you get that drive for those two really important aspects of your life? Where'd that come from?
Maybe how I got here is certainly much like many of you folks and your guests. It was just definitely not a straight line, all over the dang place. I'll get to the MBA portion in a moment, but wanted to quickly correct that the Oxford one was just one part of my MBA at UBC. I did like an exchange with Oxford.
Yeah, okay.
I would love to do that, except it was mid-COVID.
Right.
I would have gone to Oxford for that, but everything got derailed, as we all know, through the best parts of our lives a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So my parents were bankers. I'm a first generation Chinese immigrant in Canada, and like the stereotypical immigration story. Didn't know a lick of English, and trying to figure out my life here. As Canadian, I think came here when I was 5. And growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I just saw my parents going, "Oh, bankers! I'm going to be a banker." Right? And then I went to like a take your kid to work day. I was like, "No, this is not for me. No way, no way. This is so boring. I can't do this." And I ended up going to take your kid to work day with a very good family friend of mine, still today. Uncle Alex, he used to work, he's a mechanical engineer. So I went to work with him, and oh my gosh, this is like adult Lego, like this is just like putting things together, building things, solving problems. And so engineering really spoke to me. And then from that day on, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. And I went to University of Waterloo mainly because my math teacher told me it's a great place to go to. Yeah. But also the co-op. I think that the co-op really, I know you spoke to Arup and WSP, and they were really great places to work. And I got to those places because of the co-op. And I had a chance to actually do a bunch of different things before I got into the building space. And, you as a young engineer, even you don't know exactly, mechanical engineering is so broad, right? I worked out a term at Suncor out in Fort Mac in Alberta. And And then I think, actually at that moment, it kind of clicked for me and said, that's not what I want to do. It closed some doors during co-op. What I wanted to do was be in the sustainability and clean energy space. And I worked at Walter Fady after that, and then I worked at Arup, and basically my entire career has now been in the sustainability space, but no, of course, in buildings. Spent 10 years doing that during co-op and then of course graduation, working on all sorts of infrastructure projects, buildings, won Pan Am Games in 2015, and then during that time, working for those companies, it was a bunch of, as you may know, in consulting, you're working on 20 different buildings at the time. Each building is uniquely different, but more or less in some ways the same, if you know what I mean, right? But you have to explain this to the different client, right? Oh, why go this route, not this route? Go this route, not this route. From scratch, almost like trying to reinvent the wheel every single time. And that's part of our jobs as consultants, is educate, right? Is to show people, here are the possibilities and here's why and why not. But it just became a bit tiresome, to be honest. Just trying to do that every single time, building by building, and ultimately, and I actually know, Robert, I ended up reading a lot of stuff that you wrote, because I just thought, people in this space, I'm sitting in this office here, like most people, 99.9% of people, I don't care where the dang heat came from. I just care if it's comfortable in here,
yeah,
right? I don't care where it's coming from. And so, but we do so much brain damage thinking about where it's coming from, actually. And we don't think about this space. Like, all our brain damage is actually from where the places that people don't care about.
Yeah, it's just so true.
Right? And it just has to work, right? And then tick the boxes where, municipality requirements, performance, that is important. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm in the sustainability space. But what if we could simplify that? Like, take those decision-making processes away from the equation, and spend the amount of time that is appropriate on the end use, like terminal unit location, where the thermostat's located. I can't count how many times when I was taught, someone told me how to size a diffuser. Oh, just use this rule of thumb. No, then you're throwing air at my face. I don't like it, but we don't have time for any of that, because we're caring about all the other stuff downstream that no one cares about. So all this to say, I started asking all these questions, right, on how heating and cooling could be done better. But then, as an engineer, I wrote all these great reports, and then I said and then these buildings never materialized. There's a commercial hiccup. Here's a great report. This is our schematic design. Here's how we could get green, and then it collects dust. And I'm like, oh man, this is so frustrating. I don't get why. I don't get it. I didn't understand, right? I don't get why they didn't go anywhere. And so that's, but at the same time, I was at Integral Group, I remember distinctly, and I worked with a lot of really great engineers, but what really stuck to me at the time, I worked with a really great mentor of mine, Goran. He was an engineer, but he was really driving the business. We were doing very well, we were very profitable, but at the same time, we're, doing sustainability work. That really stuck to me. So that frustration combined with seeing leaders that I admire, I think I'm missing something in my own skill set. I really wanted to learn more about finance and how the commercial side of buildings, and how we get from a technical problem that I can absolutely solve for you, but how do I actually implement it?
Yeah.
And then various things led me to an MBA, and I think most people, and I can't speak for everybody, but I walked in, and my takeaway from it was, now I know how much I don't know. The MBA wasn't I walked in, now I know everything, guys. No, it was actually so eye-opening in the sense that it opened so many doors. I looked in and I go, I don't know anything there,
Yeah.
And I think that was very helpful and interesting to me. And some of the things now I've been still today, obviously we're constantly learning, that really opened my eyes and helped me gain a little bit more perspective on how these how the building side and the commercial side, how that gets married together. And I'm to today still learning. So all that is how I got to the MBA side. And now suddenly I'm in district energy, and I can obviously talk to you a little bit more about that.
We're going to talk about that. Just a couple of things to double click on there. One, just for our international listeners. So the Waterloo program is a 5-year program. It's a very prestigious university in Canada. You know, it's I've interviewed a lot of people from Queens and Waterloo, and there's a running gun battle about who's the most arrogant about where they went. But I come down on the side of Waterloo, which is a 5-year program with that 1 year out in the workspace, right? It's a bit like the Penn State thing.
It's actually I hate to be proud about Waterloo, overly proud, but it's actually 5 years because it's 2 years of work experience.
2 years.
It's 2 years, and it's a 4-year academic program compressed into 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we did 4 years of academics in 3 years because we never have summer breaks. It's school, work, and then graduated.
So is it like an engineering program designed by a tiger mum?
Sounds like
it.
What's funny? It's so funny that you say that, because part of my journey here was that my parents were probably the not so traditional. Like they were busy doing their banking stuff. They just left me alone. Like I remember my high school
I'm not buying that.
my high school, the stereotype is not too true here. Like my parents left me alone mostly. I think that I think this is an important point to bring up. Like intrinsic motivation is 1,000 times stronger than the extrinsic.
Absolutely,
motivation.
100%. Yeah.
And so if I did, there's plenty of very, very, very successful people, with tiger moms or whatever, right? The Asian parenting, there's lots of that. And then for my parents were truly, they showed me a path and then just let me roll with it. And we were in a very middle class immigrant family, and I wanted more in life. And then I drove myself, it helped me. That's what got me here. Not if it was all external, it'd be really tough.
Yeah, you have to be driven. Now, the other good thing about that program you did was you got some of the most valuable data points known to man and God, which is what I don't like. So you go on a placement and you find out what you suck at and what you don't like. And those are the best data points you can get, in my opinion, because then it sort of focuses you on where you want to go, right? So I'd say that was one of the most valuable, apart from your degree, that was one of the most valuable things you got out of that experience, right? I tried that. That's not for me. Let's not waste another minute on it, right? Moving on.
Yeah, because a lot of programs, you graduate, then you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah,
right. It's a little bit too broad, right?
Yeah.
This allowed me to do a few things, try what I didn't want to do, and even through the interview process. I remember when we were at co-op, and most 18-year-olds don't go through 200 applications job applications, then go through a rigor like 15 different companies to interview with 15 different companies, and then learn about what they do and figure out where you want to go.
And be rejected,
most 18-year-olds, and then be rejected and be like, it's water off my back. I don't care. Next. Yeah. Most 18-year-olds didn't get that experience. So
you're more prepared for the workforce than most people at that point.
Oh,
right?
totally.
You had some real life experience.
Of rejection, real life experience of rejection.
Yeah, that's the secret to life, right?
That's part of my job right now is having a lot of no's.
I was going to say, in the field that you're in now, there's a lot of that.
The trick is to take the no's and maintain your enthusiasm. That's what separates the winners from the losers, right?
That's right.
I just want to quickly talk about your MBA. Now, was it an MBA? Someone said to me, it's the most expensive way to learn how to do a net present value ever invented. You do that one afternoon on YouTube, or you can spend 200 grand and go and do an MBA. It's up to you, your choice. So I'm a bit down on MBAs, but do you think of yourself as an engineer? Now, you did the right thing in my opinion. If I get a resume from someone, they got degree in mechanical engineering, then they got a master's in mechanical engineering, that tells me they either didn't want to leave school or they couldn't get a job. And that's a red flag for me, actually. Right? Because if you can get your license with a degree, what the hell are you doing another 2 years for a master's for? It's masturbation at that point, right? Now, this is me. I've been in the real world. I've had businesses. I'm interested in hiring people who can do the job, not who think they are awesome. There is a very big difference between those people.
Yeah, totally.
And that is one of my red flags. Now, you did an MBA, so you did something that was adjacent and useful, right? That's the good side of it. So do you consider yourself an engineer, or do you consider yourself a salesman for district energy, say?
Great question. I'll answer your question, but I could take a step back on district energy in the sense that it's a very, very niche space, right?
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't so niche, but it currently is relatively niche, right? I think across Canada, I think the number stat is it's 9% of Canada is being served by a district energy system in some way. It's actually surprisingly high, actually, given what it is.
Put some perspective on that, Samson. What's Denmark? Like, so our audience understands.
Oh yeah, much higher. I think in the 80s or something.
Yeah,
right. Like,
right.
It's very high. And actually, you could. So there's a shining example of it works. It's not that it doesn't work. It's the way to implement it. And actually, this goes to answering your question. Is I think that district energy has been around for so long that it's not the engineering that's the problem. We have so many talented engineers.
Yeah.
And if you asked me if I'm an engineer, of course I am. I have my ring. I'm an engineer. I'm a PhD. But is the skill set that I'm providing on a day-to-day engineering, is that what's going to propel the industry? No, it's not. What's going to propel the industry and have district energy adoption moving forward is information, education, and alignment, right? I wouldn't actually call it sales because, of course, everything we do in some way, there's a sale. But what is sales? It's just converting an idea to a transaction. And hopefully the transaction is implementing infrastructure for the betterment of the built environment. That's what we're doing, right? But it takes a lot to do that. And so my job is to educate, originate, connect the engineers, to talk in a way that really makes sense. I've designed buildings for so long. I know what happens in the building. I think that's important. A lot of utility folks kind of like my scope ends at the building. I don't know what happens behind, right? Like stuff happens inside that building, and my scope ends here. My job is to be in the shoes of a developer, be in the shoes of people that actually run and own buildings, look from here and go, what can the utility do for them? And I think that's really important. And so I see myself as an engineer that sells an idea, but we're not selling widgets here. We're selling 30, 40, 50-year utilities that last in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And so
millions and billions of dollars at stake here.
That's right. So in that sense, yeah, I'm an engineer, but I tend to not use that skill set that much, but I can talk intelligently.
But what makes you unique amongst your peers is that you've been on the inside, on the property side, and now being on the utility side. And what makes you powerful with that is understanding the sort of the keys and the locks to connect those two to make them operate to the best that they possibly can. Not only for the occupants in the buildings, but also for the energy systems that you're converting from one form to another and then sending it to these buildings. That's a big thing, Samson, that not a lot of people have.
I try to be useful. I try to be useful, and exactly, it's to along the lines of what you just said, Rob. Right? Like, where is there a need, or where is there an information gap? And really, my job is to hopefully fill that. And Corix, we have up to the brim with talent, right? So many amazing, and maybe like literally a 5-second about Corix, right? We do DBFOM of district energy systems.
Right.
And we design, build, own, operate, finance, maintain, and the full stack, full vertical, fully integrated. And in that entire process, we have experts doing all that, right? We really do. My job is essentially to be right in the middle, smack of that, learn enough that that can talk intelligently about all those aspects, and be able to convey this information to a prospective partner where they see the value in what we do. And that's the gap, because we have all those verticals, we have all those expertise.
Yeah, there's an interesting play there, because you can position yourself as designing for a network that's designed around the principles of district energy, which is often connected to cogen or trigen. Or you can also find yourself trying to convince a developer to get a building ready for attachment to some system that doesn't even exist yet.
Oh, good luck selling that.
Right. And so, and this is, I think this is really important. I mean, for those that are listening right now, we have buildings being designed and constructed with no foresight for these energy systems that have huge benefits. Right. So a lot of traditional mindsets, a lot of traditional philosophies are going into those buildings to the detriment of that building owner, whoever that might be in the future, and also to the energy systems around it. So a question for you on that one is, that in your business, when you're looking for business, where are you at in terms of looking at buildings that are being designed today but aren't considering district energy, versus those buildings that are actually designed for systems that exist?
So, district energy, there's three main buckets just to frame the conversation, right? One is perhaps a campus style. Almost every university in North America has some sort of district energy, right? Like there's a campus style, like there's a fixed parameter, or we can add buildings, we add it on. There's that type of district energy system. There's the district energy system that is a greenfield. Actually, that's where majority of my expertise is new master plan, new district, new whatever, redevelopment of a section of a city. And then there's the existing city, dense urban core, existing steam utility, right? Like, Con Ed, N-Wave, and these systems that are in major metropolitan cities that are already there and servicing large millions of people underground, that people. There's typically those three types of systems, and I think in the first case, in campuses, that speaks for itself, right? Those type of customers, they're not typically for Corix a core target. But that being said, they're very well educated about district energy systems, and sometimes they need capital. And I think capital, I've learned as an engineer that the accountants with the money bags that hold all the decision making, right? And sometimes these campuses, these healthcare campuses, post-secondary campuses, have all the know-how on how to modernize or decarbonize or expand their district energy system for their own buildings. And that decision making is easy, right? Because it's my own building. I make the decision across campus, but they just need expertise and they need capital. And so we approach those kind of counterparties with that. You like district energy. You have a district energy on campus. You just need the expertise and capital where we can help provide that. Actually, I'll jump to the cities first. So some of these large cities that are already currently serviced by district energy systems. Some private, some municipally owned, like depending on where you're looking at. They are, of course, we don't play in the same sandbox in the sense that we don't really compete with our district energy fellow companies in a sense, because it's their sandbox, right? Will we really stand up a new district energy system in the middle of Manhattan? We would never, right? Like, why? There's no point. That's their sandbox. Keep doing what you're doing. I hope they, find ways to, build less steam and decarbonize one day. But at the same time, it's a very critical piece of infrastructure that can never go down. So you keep doing what you're doing, but let us know how we can support them. There's municipalities out there, however, that probably need some help now, right? Like they've stood up these district energy systems, and some of them, many cities now are starting to realize that maybe we should stick to our core mandate, right? Servicing streets, building libraries. Like, should we get into the business of owning a utility? So these are some fundamental questions that we're trying to help answer. And if not, if the answer is no, we don't want to be in the business of owning a utility, but we like the idea of district energy. That's where Corix can provide that sort of information on how we go about standing these up. And then finally, I think the greenfield opportunities is where I think Corix excels in. If you look at our portfolio of assets versus others, we typically don't go in and buy a system and call it ours, right? It's like, that's easy. That's it. We typically have done in the history of a company, stood up a brand new system in a greenfield space, whether that's even including a SFU, for example, right? SFU is a large university here in the Lower Mainland in BC. They had a building by building system across campus. We built a brand new district generation system. We're using fueled by waste wood and biomass, and truly waste wood. Our supplier uses broken pallets and wood waste products from BC in our lumber industry. And it services the university now, all of its buildings. It services a large private section called the University, and dozens of buildings for student housing and faculty. And all of that never existed before. It's greenfield. And so we are very skilled in standing up a utility that's able to phase and
so
be
it can
in step
grow,
with
right?
the real
It
estate.
can,
Yeah. Not like build this giant thing on day one and hope they come. And then when they don't come, what happens? What happens to the first building that connected? Are they now loaded with the entire expense for lifetime, right? And so that is a unique skill set and expertise that we bring.
Also, there's the efficiency of that. So just double clicking on the property development side of that. So, I used to be a property developer. We had hurdle rates, we had development gains we had to meet, we had, ROI, return on investment. So what are the hurdle rates for a district energy project for you guys? What sort of ROI are you looking at?
It depends. So Corix, we operate across North America.
Right.
Some jurisdictions are regulated.
Right.
And some jurisdictions are not. So where it's regulated, we actually don't set the rate of return on our equity, right? We get a approval, and not unlike any other utility, in the electrical or natural gas space, right?
Right.
So we get regulated rates of return on our equity, and that fluctuates between I think some places are 10 to 12, 13% on the equity return. I would say that's typical in the regulated space. And the non-regulated space, it really depends, because then it's a contractual, negotiation between us and the counterparty, and that can fluctuate too much. And I don't want to anchor anybody to any specific numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Adam. Yeah.
I just said I was glad to hear you. It was north of 10, right? Because one of the issues is if you speak to people who are anti-district energy, they say, it's a negative ROI, or it doesn't meet the hurdle rate, right? But 10-year treasury plus 3 or 4 is like the minimum rate of return. So that gets you into the 8 to 10% range, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying you're comfortably north of that.
That's right. And I think, we're owned by BCI, one of the largest pension funds in Canada.
So
I think
got finance.
we got finance. We have a very healthy balance sheet. We have capital where we need it. But I only mentioned this is because, BCI would not invest in us if we were not a company that could return a modest rate of return with a very healthy, lengthy system that has longevity, right?
Yeah. I mean, pension funds looking for long-term, reliable, steady gains, right? But what you are liquid, effectively, right? This is your advantage, I guess, over other competitors. You're funded.
We're funded.
Yeah.
And when you say owned, is that 100% owned, or is that a majority? Like, what's define owned?
There's not to get into too much jargon, but yes, typically we own the majority of those assets. Sometimes we partner with different stakeholders where there's meaningful contribution. I'll give you an example. I think if we work with a developer, for example, and they said, you have the exclusive right now to connect to all of our phases in this master plan parcel, and we'd like to have a 10% stake in your utility. No problem, of course.
Yeah.
And it makes good sense. They want to have skin in the game, things of that sort. We have a potential project that we're in negotiations now with a First Nations partner. It's on their land. They're working on this project, and so total limited makes sense. So we have partners where there's alignment in incentives where we would absolutely partner with them. But in majority of cases, we own as a whole of the asset. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's got to be an auditing transparency oversight committee. I'm thinking on these projects. There has to be.
Yeah. And majority of our projects, and Corix is excellent in this, is because we mostly operate in a regulated space. We are very transparent. We have to. We report why the BCUC makes sure that we spend prudently, for example, right? In the interest and protection of the end users. And so why did you replace that chiller? Was this the best use of your capital? Right. Yeah. Samson, I don't think you can rope your $1,000 steak lunch into this ratepayer. No, that's a bad idea, guys. No. Maybe, yeah. So like there's certainly a level of transparency and third sort of public scrutiny on what we do, generally speaking, and even in places. I'll give you an example. In the state of Washington, it is now regulated. We've actually helped form a regulated utility of regulated. Structure for thermal utilities in Washington state. Previously to that, when we first stood up our Bellingham project, there was none. And so what we suggested was we could have a quasi-regulated system. We'd have a board of which Corix would be on there, the Port of Bellingham would be on there, and our main stakeholder and partner. And we would put in place contracts that emulated a regulated model where we'd have reviews and it'd be prudent spending of capital. At the same time, there'd be oversight. So it's not a black box where it's just, this thing and then energy comes in. We don't know. They're gutting us with 30% returns and we have no idea what goes on behind the curtain. That's not typically, I don't think in the history of Corix, we've done anything like that. So
let's nerd out a bit on the engineering side now. So I want to talk about FM, but let's start with design. So I first bonded with Robert over a thing called Valve Authority and Exergy. And so I knew we were meant to be together.
Exergy, the chaos of the universe.
Exactly.
Just the basics of like selecting a control valve with the right authority. When I first moved to Canada 20 years ago, I was horrified that everything was a rooftop unit and all control valves were line size. And in the end, I got fed up talking about it. It was like getting dementia. You just hit your head on the wall too often, right? So what is the state of play in terms of design? Because let's be honest, most buildings are like rule of thumb selection is a rooftop unit, is a chiller, it's not size for efficiency, it gets engineered down. But if you're doing a district energy system, does that have a higher level of design input and a design outcome?
I love this question because I answered this question almost exactly the way you asked it yesterday. And
good man.
I'll give the same answer, which is, I'll give you a very neat example. There's a 4-tower project, okay? And we've seen all these sort of little, they're not master plans, but district energy capable and compatible. But they don't all come up at the same time, right? Like 4 buildings, they might build phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 over 10 years, let's say, right? And the BAU in the traditional case, your engineer needs to, I've done that. I have to stamp the damn thing. I'm going to put safety factor on it, like the yin yang, right? Like gotta make sure it works. Gotta make sure it works. It's probably 50% oversized, but it happens. And then through commissioning, through operating the building, you realize that it's so oversized, it's working on part load, 20% part load half the year, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
In the traditional BAU case, right, business as usual case, it is what it is. There you go. That's your building. Like it or love it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way it is. You're stuck. Now, in what we do, of course, we're going to try to not oversize so significantly that everybody's going to try to do that. But what we can do is have room for iteration. I think that's a big part of district energy, iteration. We've operated building 1 for the last 5 years. We found out all the things that we just described. I'm not claiming that we're smarter than anybody, right? We now have the data. We've operated the building, and we know that we actually have 50% extra capacity on this building. Our phase 2 building now does not need to have such a large heating cooling plant. We can now we're connecting it. We can now utilize some of our first phase equipment, operate that for another 2-3 years. Building 3, we ended up not putting in any equipment. We just connected it, put a heat exchanger in there. Now we've increased the utilization of our capital and our equipment. Now the rate base goes to a third building with the same amount of capital, a little bit with actually an ETS room and a heat exchanger and pipe work, but the incremental capital spent, now everybody's better off, and the equipment as a whole, as an aggregate, is now right sized. And then on the 4th building and the 5th building, you get the trend, you get it, right? So we can iterate, and we can keep monitoring and operating our systems to make sure that we really truly have right-sized the entire system. Now, district energy, and another thing is resiliency, right? Like, we are a utility. We're not, just trying to make it work, and if it fails, it fails, right? Like, we are a utility. So 9 times out of 10, let's say you have your singular building and you want a little bit of resiliency, you do a 50-50 pump set, right?
Yeah.
And for us, we can have N+1 on a system basis, for example, rather than on every building needs another extra pump. So now you've also increased that sort of resiliency, but not at the cost of having so much redundant backup equipment, right? Yeah. And then that furthermore compounds the efficient use of capital, and as a whole for the building developer, we spent much less capital, and the key to the issue here is that capital, they didn't have to spend a dime. We're the infrastructure developer. Yeah. We put in all that money as Corix, and of course we're going to make a return. There's no free lunch, but for the developer, boom. You've now taken 15% of your capital costs off your pro forma. Not only is it just a shift from their balance sheet to ours, we've done it in a much more efficient way, and everybody wins.
The Edifice complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you struggling with paperwork, spreadsheet overload, and project management? Then Blue Rhythm is the solution to help you. Streamline your commissioning and project management process. Go paperless. Increase efficiency, and save money. Blue Rhythm is commissioning and project management software by practitioners for practitioners, adapting to your workflows and processes, and doing things your way. Blue Rhythm provides painless and fast onboarding by bringing your existing workflows, forms, checklists, and issues logs into Blue Rhythm for you. You can use their pre-built templates to customize your commissioning workflows, and Blue Rhythm can fully handle the transition from your current software platform. Blue Rhythm is secure, scalable, and reliable, backed by amazing support, and accessible 24/7 on any Windows, iOS, or Android device. Why are you still using paper and hard-to-control spreadsheets? Start your free Blue Rhythm account today at bluerhythm.com.
And now, back to the show.
That's interesting, because what you're saying is, like, you need scale, right? Because district energy is just Latin for scale, right? But as you build out, less plant is required, right? So there's a diminishing requirement for plant, and there's an escalating return on efficiency. But do you find some property developers are uncomfortable when you say, you know what, no chillers for that building, no boilers for that building? How does that go down?
I think it's an education.
Yeah.
Some developers just haven't heard of it, or there's a sour taste in their mouth working for another district energy provider.
Yeah.
It's pretty unfair, right? It's like saying like all contractors are the same, all commissioning agents are the same. Like no, they're not. Like you had a bad experience there, and but you know what I mean. Like people kind of get that. Oh, district energy, I didn't like it over there. So what really, my argument is simply look at our track record and look at our reliability is higher than the local natural gas and electrical utility combined, right?
Is that a KPI you track, uptime, for want of a better word?
Yep. We do, because we're dual fuel. We have extra resiliency. Like our unplanned outages are next to none, right? 99.99%. Operating uptime is something we're very proud of, and as an aggregate across our systems.
Well, that's a solid feature, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't do at the beginning was probably set the stage for the dialogue, because we're talking about some things a lot of people may not actually understand.
Yeah, good point. Well done.
Just jumped right into it.
We just jumped right into it. So just I want to take a couple seconds here. So just if you're not familiar with district energy and what we're talking about, just imagine you're at a monopoly board and there's all these properties around the board. And those represent the buildings that we're talking about. And in a typical development, each of those buildings would have their own power plant inside of it, and they would be serviced by gas and electrical, and they get a bill from the utility company once a month, blah, 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 right? But what we're talking about here is connecting all of those properties on the monopoly board into a common plant. And that energy from that plant can often be generated from a power production or something else, trigen, cogen. So that's what we're talking about here. And some of the benefits to that, of course, is the diversity in the development. When you're talking about putting in power into one building, and then you got three other ones coming online. As you add buildings, or in the case of the monopoly, as you keep connecting buildings onto the circuit, you now have diversity in that system. And the more buildings on it, the greater the diversity, and you can move energy back and forth within that network. There's a huge benefit to that. And then the second thing is that if you take the monopoly board, every one of those buildings have their own mechanical and electrical systems in it, which means service and maintenance for the life of that building. But when you do district energy, now you have a central plant that gets maintained rather than 100 plants that get maintained. I mean, there are individual systems within the building that have to be maintained, but not on the same scale as the boilers and the chillers and the heat pumps and waste recovery and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a scale, as Adam, you were talking about, having that massive scale also reduces maintenance, and the funding on that also becomes really interesting. Rather than funding 100 mechanical plants, now you're funding one. So there's just a huge amount of benefits for it. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it is a huge benefit. Now,
thank you. That's very succinct, Robert. Appreciate that.
Now, Samson, I asked you if you were an MBA, or are you an engineer? You're an engineer, but I would argue you are the Don Draper of engineers. You're Mad Men. You remember Mad Men, that TV show about advertising? Do you ever see that?
Yes.
Your job actually is persuasion. Persuading people to work for you, to do great work, and persuading people you're talking to that your idea is the best thing they've ever heard in their life, right? That's straight up persuasion 101.
Yeah, in a less Don Draper way, but yes.
Yeah, no. I'm assuming you're not an alcoholic at this point. Yet.
No. In some way, persuasion, yes. But persuasion, I think just as to be, very, thank you for the compliment. I think that's huge. But to be very, very crystal clear, I don't see myself as he is a great marketer, right?
Yes.
He is a great storyteller, and those things resonate, and I love that. But there were parts that were, how do we twist the truth? And I don't think that's the part that I would absolutely will not do. With having integrity as an engineer, as a practitioner, and I'll be the first to tell you, this is not an application for district energy. please do not, like, we should not talk. Here are all my friends that you should talk to, but don't, like, I'm good, right? I think that's what's going to really, that credibility is very, very important.
But you've got a tough job, mate, because you're competing against cheap rooftop units and people who's are making pretty much 90% of their decisions based on a first cost basis.
Yeah.
That's tough. I do often wonder, what would it be like in some fantasy world where we could hire a Madison Avenue advertising agency and say, give me a campaign for district energy. What would that look like?
I don't know what that looks like. That's a good question. But I've been obviously always think about this question.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always point to is just ask simply a question. I hope everybody has a different answer, but I think this question gets the wheels turning, which is, back in hundreds of years ago, we decided that every house needed electricity, right? So why then we did not go and start putting in oil power plants in all of our buildings. So we centralized it, and everybody has power, right? And for the last so every decade since, your building design, right? You talk to an electrical engineer. There's two camps. There's the transmission people and power generation people, and then there's the in-building people. They don't know, and most of the time it doesn't overlap. It's like, hydro, give me the service. I know what to do afterwards, right? And their focus is, how do I make best use of this resource that I'm given, electricity, and distribute it around the building for all its needs? And I can spend my time to focus on that. Right? Just like we talked about thermal comfort. We can focus on that, how the end users need the power. But for some, reason in North America specifically, and Europe's already advanced this discussion, right? Like, we don't have to have this discussion. There's heating on the street, just take it and move on.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we absolutely have, maybe it's a North American sort of a mentality of like control, independence, right?
Totally.
I don't the sense of like, I don't need the community. I just need me, myself, and I. But I want my own furnace in my building. I want my own chillers. Yeah. I want and that's
district
sort of
energy is communism, baby.
Yeah, district energy. Oh my gosh, I'm relying on someone else. All your electricity and natural gas is relying on somebody else too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so district energy is just saying, if we can remove all the complexity from the mechanical engineer's scope in the building, right, where who cares about, in our discussion, or who cares where the becomes a hookup, right? Where the cooling is coming from. We know the building has heating and cooling, how much you need. Now, as a mechanical engineer, I don't have to go and write 1,000 more schematic reports on why which heat pump do I need or whatever. I get my reports more focused on our narrative design is going to have X, this thermal comfort rating. We're going to limit drafts. We're going to mount thermostats at these locations and Y and this height. We're going to be able to use automated controls for, blah, 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 blah. This is the commissioning focus. All that stuff was never contemplated for most engineers, right? It's just the plant.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary. Now we can actually do what electrical engineers have been doing for decades, is that part where you get from the means to the end, and we can focus on that. And that's how we can get really, really great mechanical.
That is buildings. What you just said there, right? District energy systems is the same as electrical district distribution system, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah.
And we accept the electrical distribution system, no problem.
Yeah. To look at it the other way, if each of these were currencies, right? If we actually modeled our economic systems based on how we traditionally do buildings, everybody would have their own currency. Can you imagine the cluster of economics that would occur if every building was represented a different currency? I mean, that happens in some Southeast Asian countries in the early days where they didn't even know how to value their own dollar. Right. But what you're doing is you're saying, we have one currency for power, one currency for heat, one currency for potable water. And that's all you need is 3 currencies. We don't have to create new currencies. Right.
That's right. That's right. And the ability to change is another thing, right? The scale, the impact, right? Yeah. Like if I'll use a commonly used example, right? Like, if you're trying to decarbonize your power grid, is it easy? No, it's not easy. It's a extremely complex and difficult and expensive endeavor, right? Let's just put it that way. But once you do it, right? Once you do it, when you're able to find a way to do it, you've now changed the entire state, the entire province, like the entire grid is now better off. And that cost is not shared by one person, it's shared by entire rate base. Can you imagine trying to convince the same amount of people, the millions and millions of millions of people that are on that rate base, each individually, or to be realistic, maybe 1% of that, the decision makers, that we need to change your heating cooling system. That's just so tiring.
It's interesting because what you're talking about.
I can convince one stakeholder or one group that to make the right choice, I've done my job.
That you're talking about here is you're asking the people you're speaking to do what's called cathedral thinking. Think about things that are going to have a benefit to not them, but people beyond them, right? Over time. Mm-hmm. That's tough because we're all sort of selfish individuals most of the time, right?
But I think that's where the Nordic countries, it seems that the Nordic countries have put that, I agree with Adam, but for parts of the world, that's not even a discussion. It's just, one of the best countries I've ever been to several times now is Denmark, and the community that they have within Denmark and just the lifestyle that they have.
Yeah.
It's just a different world there. It is. Now they're also they pay a tax rate that's, we choke here in Canada on the taxes we pay. Over there. It's life threatening, but education, healthcare, the whole promotion of health, body health, mind health, all of these types of things. One of the first things that struck me about in Copenhagen was just the number of bicycles. Like, it's just everybody rides everywhere in between communities, like, towns to towns, towns to cities, within the cities. It's just a different world. And they very much see things, I think, more of a holistic community.
Well, that's a cultural phenomenon you're talking about.
It is,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I just want to nerd out a little bit, right? So you get the heating and cooling come to your house. Let's pretend we're on an energy grid, right? Now, look, I've always wanted and never got in North America because, I live in North America now. Radiant heating and cooling and DOAS. That's all I want.
Radiant heating and cooling.
And DOAS, right?
Dedicated outdoor
with a heat recovery vent. That's all I want.
The DOAS, yeah. With the DOAS, yeah.
I got more chance of the Queen of England coming and washing my car than getting that in my house right now. Now, this is a supply chain issue. It's a culture issue, right?
Yeah.
If you look, you're a product of the Goran school of beating people up, right? He worked on the.
He can be a tough negotiator.
He's Serbian.
I'll take all the good. I take the good from everybody.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I used to be his partner, right? He's the most Serbian guy I've ever met in my life. His idea of being happy is just a tiny smile. But he's a good engineer. But he worked on the Olympic Village, right? The Winter Olympic Village. That was that was our job. And that was radiant heating and cooling. God, the things we had to go through to get that thing done was epic. It was like, if we wanted an easy life, we'd have just gone like rooftop units. Yeah, give us the money. Thank you. Goodbye. We didn't. But it was like you had to believe like a mofo to get that job through the line.
On that project specifically, Adam, that one's connected to the Vancouver neighborhood energy.
It is, yeah. It's on the district system. Right? There was a lot of givens to help us with our cause, but just going to suppliers and saying we didn't want to do rooftop units was like, what? Really? Are you mad?
Yeah.
Now, like just to very selfishly on that note, right? Like now do all that brain damage for radiant stuff. Yeah. At least you didn't have to figure out a plant. You got the heat.
True, yeah.
You just had it. Yeah. You just got it. It's going to be there. Instead of now I got to figure out a low carbon source of heat as well. What? Where? How?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. No, I'm a big fan of district energy, and you've probably been one of the best advocates for that I've come across based on how you've explained it. You just need to embrace your inner Don Draper dude and get out there and roadshot this, because your job is you're selling a concept, almost a lifestyle, and an engineering solution in one, right? That's
To some
hard.
degree, yeah.
That's
yeah,
hard.
yeah, it is tough. It is tough.
Yeah.
And earlier I think we talked about like how the district energy, you have to think a little bit beyond yourself. There is that.
Yeah.
And there's no I think there is a somewhat of a correlation of that
Yeah.
for some of the happiest countries in the world, having a bit of a social and communal aspect about our lives. I think that's very important. At the same time, I'm a fairly sort of pragmatic person, and in all of the sustainability work I do, like how do we make this real? I'd rather have 80% of the progress than none.
Right. Yeah.
And in the sustainability realm, and what I mean by that is for the district energy realm, there is a selfish motivation. Of course, everybody has their own motivations, and they need to. And where we have adapted that sort of the district energy model from the Nordic model to here is we're working in an angle that's slightly different, right? And we're working in an angle that has tangible, if you want to call it selfish, but everybody, if you are who you are because you want to make your family happy, you want to make $1, so like put that aside. There are tangible benefits to the real estate developer where we took the capital off their hands. Benefit, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So they're happy,
there are
right?
tangible benefits from the building. Now we sold it to a condo board, strata board, right? They own the building, they get heat. Tangible benefits. How many people in that strata have a mechanical engineering background? So when a contractor comes in and says, "Oh, your boiler is 2 years old, but you should replace it." Oh, sounds good. Special levy time, everybody. How many people? There is tangible
Drake Landing.
There is tangible benefit to end users that is dealt with by a professional utility that's regulated.
Yeah.
And then there's so the developer wins, the end user wins, the community wins. That we are able to put in a low carbon heating cooling source that in another project I'm working on right now in the States, where there's a big anchor load, but district energy system is going to grow to it. But that's going to now revitalize the area and really bring in and catalyze more economic investment because the infrastructure is in the ground already. We talk about master plans all the time, right? And people go site services, sewer, water, electricity. And then
So the gains are on the margin, right? Because the incremental gains is cheap because the infrastructure's there.
Yeah, put in the heating cooling while you're at it on that site servicing plan, right?
Yeah.
And so all that to say is like we need to identify those wins with these people, not just you should sacrifice for the betterment of mankind, but that's
a tough
great
sell.
and all, but that's a hard sell. And what we're really focused on is identifying those wins that do benefit everybody and finding a solution that does benefit everybody, and not working in such a siloed, traditional infrastructure utility methodology where we're like, what do you need? Here you go. I provide you with what you asked for, and I'm done. And here are the rates. That model's not going to work.
That's on a macro scale, but there's also on the micro scale that's really important because it gets scaled up by quantity of subscribers, and that has to do. Like I got into the district energy business. I don't know if you knew this, Samson, but we were making substations, but we were also a distributor as well as control. So we had all of the thoroughbreds of brand names. You would recognize them all. And when we would sell components, there was always a parasitic loss on our system by having to service whatever. A call would come in, something not working, blah, 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 blah. When we built substations, they were all pre-engineered, prefabricated, tested at the facility before they got shipped out. We never heard back from them. So if you take a single building and you think about the parasitic financial loss and just all of the downtime maintaining crap, as opposed to dealing with prefabricated systems that go into each of the buildings, it's massive, and so it's a small part of district energy, but because there's so many subscribers on the system, when you scale it up, that parasitic, if you put dollars to it, is millions and millions of dollars over the long term of the project, right? So there's huge benefits on a micro scale as well as the macro scale.
I'm so glad you brought it up, Rob, because even I'm guilty of it myself. And early in my career, when I was in engineering, more of pure engineer consultant, my life ended after the system I got a commission for. Right? It's done. I don't know what happens to that system 10 years from now, 5 years from now. That's not my problem. All I know is, I got a commission report that says it's operating as designed or not. But that's another day, and that's it. I don't know any of that, and so that's why when you talk to most engineering consultants, it's not to their fault. It's just they don't know what they don't know, and they have not considered what you just talked about, Rob. Where when they're recommending all these individual systems, that it's cheaper, capex, it's all the above reasons, but the lifetime cost is so much higher. Yeah. Why do you think every single healthcare and university campus has some sort of district energy system decades ago? Now, Can we do district energy better today? Of course we can. Like, probably will hopefully never put in another gas-fired steam system ever again. Like, we could do it better. But the platform, the strategy was intended so that you could have a dedicated group of FM staff maintain a central location and not run around, spend all day running around just tweaking this, tweaking that, tweaking this. That the whole intent is so that make sure that your lowest lifetime cost of utility. They've done that for decades. Yeah. And it still rings true today.
So that FM piece, right? FM is not spoken about enough.
Facility maintenance, by the way.
Facilities management and maintenance.
Yes.
So when you have a district system, that becomes a very key component, right? Because you actually care about it. But most jobs are, I put an office up, everyone runs away like it's a crime scene, because it is. Some poor bugger has to come and maintain it, right? Doesn't know what it's going on.
That's right.
And then the performance of that building.
As built are wrong,
Yeah, exactly. Now, when you do a district energy system, there is a lot of incentive to run that properly, right? And maintain it and optimize it continually. So, I mean, is that something you guys take on as well? Do you...
Yes, absolutely. So, I think, and the Corix is the full vertically integrated stack. DBFOM, and that's the part that is really important, because we own it, and we own and operate and maintain all of our own systems. So it's totally aligned in that in terms of incentives, right? We won't make short-term Band-Aid fixes, because that's what they asked us to do, because and for the lowest cost, we're going to make decisions that are of benefit to the utility in the long term, because we own it in perpetuity.
So do you data monitor and benchmark everything? And because if you get enough district energy systems, there's a fascinating study there on what works and doesn't work, really, right?
That's actually a thought leadership piece that we've been discussing internally, and obviously there's how much we can share, how much we can't, but I think there's lost so much gems of information and takeaways we can get from the data that we own. So to answer your question, of course we track and monitor all of that. I'll give you an example. We have you call her the brain. We have a control office that monitors every single one of our US and Canada West assets.
Right.
In this one control center, you've seen those like at the subway or the airport control room. That was a look like it's like
this sort of the anti-terrorism office in
50 screens, all these different things going off, and indicating where what the systems are doing and what their flow rates are, whatever. We monitor that 24/7. Remotely, but we also have people, in there to react to it and dispatch at any time. And it brings two things. One, we don't have to have a full-time person running or sitting in the plant. That adds cost to every single asset. We remotely monitor, but we always have somebody physically present to monitor and to dispatch. And number two is, because it's remotely monitored, to your point, Adam, we have all the data. It's just it's available.
So you're seeing in real time performance. You can calculate efficiency in real time almost, right?
We calculate efficiency in real time. We do predictive system startup, for example. Now, biomass system, I'll give you the example. Biomass system we own at SFU. You don't just turn up but it takes a little while for this thing to ramp up. And it takes a little while for it to ramp down, right?
Yeah.
So if SFU, all the students run in, the building side, you want it to be 8 o'clock. That means you want your system warm up, if you commission it properly, to be maybe start warming up the building at 7, right?
Yeah.
And because people are coming in at 8, well, that means our biomass system has to probably ramp up at 6.
Yeah.
But we'll shut off well before the people have left, because there's so much thermal mass and inertia in the system. And so like things, just a one.
So you're calculating that quite accurately, right? Based on
one of many, many, many things that we can do to optimize the system.
That goes back to your resilient. That goes back to your resilience statement.
Yep.
The capacitance of the entire system, right?
Yeah, we could be off for hours and people wouldn't notice, because there's so much thermal mass in the system.
Yeah.
And through the optimization, our biomass is probably one of the most high performing in the entire North America. It's 80+%.
Wow.
Have you heard of our biomass with 80+% operation efficiency? It's unheard of.
So this goes back again to your partnership with your vendors too, because in terms of scrubber systems and recovery off this, all of these things are important. So whose job is it to do the due diligence on your vendors? Is that a partnership? How's that work?
Our vendors or our partners? Sorry.
Well, your vendors
in terms of SFU or?
No, in terms of the actual equipment itself. So you're on your biomass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have of course, we talked about all the vertical expertise that we have, right? Like our engineering teams, our consultants that we rely on. We go through the whole gamut, right? Like do RFP process, figure out which equipment's going to work the best for us. This system profile operates all the time in part load. We're going to find this part load, equipment that operates better with part load with better turn down efficiency. I don't want to get too jargony for your viewers, but like we're gonna actually go and look at that, right?
Yeah.
And this system, this one's 20% more, but we're not going for lowest cost. We're going for lowest lifetime cost.
Right. Yeah.
So we're gonna go and evaluate all that, right?
What I love about this too is that because you're centralized and everything, things like and especially this is Simon Fraser University, by the way, right? SFU.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. Simon Fraser. So in terms of even the materials that you're using in the biomass, all of the safety, all the transportation, all of the quality control on the incoming, and then there's the emissions from the plant itself and all of these things. But what's nice about that is that it's all within one responsibility. You're not dealing with 100 people trying to manage all this shit. This is all in your court. I love that.
Just us, and you can point the finger and us on all those aspects.
You're not having to point at different things. Okay, well, this screwed up. Now it's like
or they commissioned it and now they're gone. And who do I call now? Like, no, right. We're involved, and we have to, come hell or high water, deal with it. That's ours.
Everything you're talking about just requires long-term thinking, right?
Totally.
That's right.
Which is almost like the anti what we're doing right now.
Buildings are getting so complex nowadays.
Yes.
Right? We're just always adding more. We're never subtracting. When was the last time we de-scoped the building? Minus value engineering. That's just doing less. But de-scoping, right? Like, when's the last time we did that? And ideally, I'd like to say that I like to think that district energy it takes the scope away, at least some of it, for us to deal with. Now you can focus on things you want to focus on, and eliminate at least a little bit of that complexity.
Yeah, there's a philosophy called addition through subtraction, right?
Yeah.
So by removing stuff, you're actually adding benefits, not more complexity because you're removing the complexity, but you're actually making a better whatever it is that you're doing, right? And that's a principle actually in industrial design and product ergonomics. When I think about like the TV remotes, they just kept adding shit onto it. And all people want to do is turn it on, change the channel, and turn the volume. Everything else is complexity. It's not necessary, right?
Oh yeah, we've all had those like universal remotes from like the 90s where there's like you can expand it, right? And then there's like 100 buttons.
You need to go to college for a year to learn how to use it, right?
I mean, you're talking with three people with engineering backgrounds. We understand science and math and complex systems, and yet just like, And it's the same thing, but on a more, again, going back sort of into the user experience, thermostats were the same way, where they became so complex, people couldn't use them. They just used them as a switch. So why didn't you just put a switch on the wall?
Correct. Listen, we are coming up on time here. We've been nerding out hard here for the last hour. So
Totally.
Let's just go to one quick fire question from each of us. So my question is this. If district energy wasn't around, what would you be evangelizing about as an engineer?
If district energy wasn't around, what would I be evangelizing on? It's probably something you least expect. When I was a kid, I only wanted to do two things. That's when I decided I wanted to be an engineer. I had two career paths. I wanted to be an engineer, or I wanted to be a chef. I love cooking. I am so passionate about food. I love all the details that go into it and how things are. It's like maybe the engineer part of me, the food science. Like, oh, can I lower the pH on that pork skin and make it crispier? That's probably
the
what
engineer's
I would
approach to
evangelizing
cooking,
on.
right?
Sounds like a road trip, Adam.
I love to cook. I love to eat, and I would evangelize about thinking about food in a way that brings curiosity. That's what I would probably do.
Nice. That's
and not just at a surface level, just like, oh, like here's how it's made. Like, this is why it tastes so good. And I would love to get into food science.
So you would be a food engineer,
so
is what I'm hearing, basically.
yeah, exactly. There's a chef, and it's a book by Kenji Lopez, and that's how I really got into it. It literally is his book's called The Food Lab, and it's a great book that talks about the science of cooking, and fascinating. And once you learn those science, it's just like engineering basic principles.
Yeah.
You can apply it to anything. So half the time when I hate recipes, and you tell me, okay, I need to fry that. I know what's temperature I need to fry that at. You don't need to tell me. I know.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's my question. Well answered, sir.
One of the things.
Can you tell that I really like to eat? Or... I'm a foodie. I'm a self-proclaimed foodie.
That's good. One of the things that drove me to bring you on the show, Adam and I are always looking for great guests, and you've hit all the cylinders, which is awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But one of the things that triggered it was actually you had posted a picture online with you and your kid, and you were crashed on the floor. I loved it because it just represented so many people from our peer group, that where you're working hard and you're always intellectually challenged from so many different places. I mean, it's an amazing career to have, but at the end of the day, you're going home to your family and trying to develop that. So what advice would you have? Your parents raised you, they were bankers, but you chose the engineering path and you have children. What, from the Samson Tam, the engineer, to the Samson Tam, the family man, what advice would you have for parents of kids in school, and trying to guide them for their career path? What would you say to them?
Well, two bullet points stick out to me. One is, I can't speak for everybody, but I think my generation of young dads were extremely involved, and I love that. Like, I really want to be so involved in our kids' lives as much as I can. And how do you balance that with this career? And also on top of that, like the travel needed, and so it has been tough. It's tiring. It's exhausting. And trying to be part of a growing company like Corix, where we're going to be the best district energy company in North America, and that's what we want to be. So how do we balance that? Honestly, for me, the thing is we really rely on a village. District energy is a community. Relying on people together to do better things, right? And I'm not a do-it-all. I can't. I do what I can. I try my best. We all try our best. End of the day, you need to know what you're most effective in and do that, and where you need help. And we purposefully moved closer to home to my parents to where we can get a little bit of help from the grandparents. We have, of course, help a community of friends and neighbors that we take turns, right? Sometimes we watch their kids, sometimes they watch ours. And I think that sense of community has been a little bit lost in our North American society, right? Like, it's just like, don't bother me, like, and then I won't bother you, and then we all lock ourselves in our houses. And I think, helping each other out, being a part of a community is really important, because no one can really do it all. So that's number one. And number two is maybe corny and cliche, but when I get home, I'm not District Energy Samson, Engineer Samson. I'm just dad, right? Yeah. And husband. And that's my primary stakeholders is my family,
Yeah.
And so you gotta put that hat on and go, like, what do they care about? What do they need? What can I provide to satisfy those my main stakeholders, what their concerns and needs are, and what can I not do? And I'm going to mess up on them. Now I need to hire a consultant to help me, or i.e. like external help, right? Like, to fulfill those needs. And that's the best you can do.
Okay, I can't disagree with any of that, I've got to say.
Yeah. And I've been dropping balls. Like, I'm not perfect, for sure.
That's what makes you an actual dad.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
The analogy was, I've heard it from someone else, and I'm sure you've heard it, is juggling all these balls. You just got to figure out which one's glass and which one's rubber.
Right.
You can't drop. And then the rubber one, like, let's roll down the hill. I'll pick it up later. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
Well, man, well, listen,
like
thank you
that.
for coming on the show. That was awesome. I'm a big fan of District Energy, and I think you are a very, very good advocate for it. So well done.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys for bringing me on the show. I'm blessed, honored.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Are you passionate about the built environment? Do you want to learn from the industry's most inspiring, intelligent, and accomplished professionals? Then the companion to this podcast, Wisdom of the Property Crowd, is just the book for you. From Edifice Complex podcast interviews, this book distills the critical thinking, insight, and ideas of some of the property industry's most accomplished and respected practitioners. Each chapter is a synopsis of an hour-plus interview, capturing the takeaways and insights, including diagrams and images, to help explain concepts and ideas. There's also a brief bio about the interviewee and a QR code linked to the podcast episode for those that want to explore further. These are the mentors you wish you had in college. Wisdom of the Property Crowd by Adam Muggleton, available on Amazon worldwide.
And now, back to the show.
So glad we had Samson join us in a dialogue. And, like I said in the introduction, like, it's a niche market, District Energy. And for us here, but in other parts of the world, it's like, it's just standard stuff. There's no dialogue about why you do things. It's just, that's the way you do it. Here in North America, like, for our listeners, I can't emphasize this enough that, for us to reach sort of our electrification, decarbonization goals, it has to be part of the solution. Like, it just has to be. And Samson makes some great arguments, why we need to do that. And you rightly so, defined him as somebody who has to take his engineering degree and his business degree, but ultimately you got to convince somebody to sign a check.
He's got a hard, he could have taken the path. I'm an engineer, I'm selecting pumps and chillers. Have a nice day, right?
Yeah.
But he's made his life 10 times harder. He's also got to sell a concept, get someone to sign on the line that is dotted, and do the engineering.
Right? Yeah, it's a challenge. But you can tell he's got the passion and enthusiasm for it. And he's persistent, and failure is just part of the game. Rejection is part of the game, and you just keep going. And what you end up with, and this is a message, for our listeners, is that, rejection doesn't define you. It's just just another way to move on. Like, take that information and move on to the next one. And then
correct.
What you'll find at the end of your career after being rejected is that you'll actually have a bunch of success stories. And but those successes couldn't happen if you didn't have somebody kick sand in your face.
That degree he went through at Waterloo is a great preparation for what he's doing now.
Yeah.
If you had sort of knew what he was going to wind up doing, that is exactly where you would have steered him to, right? So he's done well there, but you can see there's competence and passion there in abundance. What I did like was his analogy of an electrical system is a district system.
Yeah. Right.
So we're fine with that, right?
Yeah. Metered energy, right? Whoops.
Yeah. I don't need a little generator in my back garden. I'm fine with.
Yeah.
So I like that. That was a great sort of analog.
He made some funny statements about the brain damage comes, from worrying about things that people don't care about.
Exactly. What was the other one? Avoid unnecessary brain damage. I'm trademarking that one.
I love it.
Yeah. That was good. What the other thing? He was touching on it as well, like the cultural difference between countries, right? Property is an expression of culture and power, right? A tall skyscraper, that's an expression of power, right? It's an edifice complex, no less.
Yeah.
Right? So, there is a cultural phenomenon here that he's also trying to overcome, right? So North America is a frontier place, it's atomistic, everyone's an individual, everyone thinks they're Davy Crockett. You're not selling district energy to Davy Crockett, right? He wants his own fire. And that is probably the hardest thing to overcome, and also the very short-term first cost thinking that goes on in North America. I've seen it in Europe, but here it's really like the default 90% decision, I find.
It's like people. If I had when I die, I think on my tombstone I'm gonna say, if the industry was graded based on academic scores, so A, B, C, D, and then there's an F, right? How we operate today within the confines of building codes and standard practice is at a D level.
Yeah. And
yet people try to drive it cheaper, less quality, like they're working their way into the F league. and that's
they're fighting to get in there. Let me in.
Right? It's just like you keep driving yourself down into the point of failure.
Yeah.
That's a different league altogether than, take F1 Formula racing. Like nobody wants to be in the F league. No. You want to be in the fantastic league. That's what F is all about. You're always constantly improving your engineering, your fuel, so even your teammates, everybody's together working to improve, to be better.
This is the other thing, right? That's sort of antithetical to what's going on right now. If you're doing a district system, it's not a put it in and walk away situation.
That's right. Yeah.
That is, and frankly, that's what it is on every other building. Right?
That's a good
point. Put it in and
yeah.
walk away.
Yeah.
So this sort of cathedral thinking, this long-term thinking that's required, that is actually the mindset that has to change. You're asking people to make decisions that aren't going to affect them after 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? So, you're asking them to be invested in someone else's benefit, which
totally.
is hard, really hard. But he should be. He is the Don Draper of district energy for me. He's got to get out there and sell that thing.
Yeah. I loved his analogy of district energy as a representation of family practices, connected.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all dropped the ball. I know I've dropped some big balls in my career, my life as a family person, but it is true. Like we are, everything is connected. And when you do make those connections, you do have resiliency in the systems that you're doing, whether it's on the district energy or the family stuff. And like I said to him, one of the things that triggered us inviting him on the show was that crashing on his leg. It was so typical. It's like, oh, I know what that's all about.
Yeah, no, he's gonna have a very big career in front of him. This guy, wherever you put him, he's just all guys going to filter up to the top somewhere.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. But he's been trained under Goran, who is hard nosed, man. He doesn't suffer fools. Goran, like Sean, who's coming on soon. He's another Goran thing. Like you could do your best work, give it to Goran. He goes, I think so. He's a great engineer, Goran. He really is, and he he doesn't accept anything mediocre. You will do great work for him, or you will not be working with him. That's pretty much how it goes.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's been well trained there, and Goran's a beast. He's very successful. So, he's had the benefit of like Waterloo and being mentored and having to work alongside Goran, which is a great thing in anyone's career. So I always say the best thing that can happen to you early in your career is you get a total psycho who really knows what he's doing, working with you, and just like says, "Okay, I'm not going to fire you, but it's going to be tough for the next couple of years."
Yeah.
That's the best thing that can happen.
One of the traits that a lot of our guests have, and I was just thinking about this, very much like a hydraulic jack, they're always pushing themselves, ratcheting themselves up higher, and and they recognize there's resistance, but they put in the effort and they keep just hitting.
They push through, right?
Yeah, they push through, and Samson's a great example of someone who's ratcheted himself up. But a lot of that, again, is it's internal. It's that internal drive. And, he has it in spades. And
he's also got personality, right? The fact he thinks about things outside of work, I want to be a chef. Yeah, that's great. Chef's a creative thing, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So, I'm on board with that, man. I'd hire him in a freaking heartbeat if I was an employer, no problem.
Yeah.
And you'd know that after about 5 minutes of talking to him, probably, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right, man. So, look, we should wrap it up there. I'll see you on the next one.
All right, Adam. Cheers.
All right, take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Edifice Complex podcast with Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean. See you next time.